sequentially. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the person who just turned on recording. We are entering our programming portion of the meeting where we're talking about redistricting. And right now we started with the city of Ann Arbor. So starting in the city, we've apportioned the wards. There's very few changes in the downtown area. But the other thing that happened recently is that the precincts were renumbered sequentially from 1 to I think 53 or 50 something or other, 53. So if you're in Ward 1, your precinct numbers are the same. But if you're in Ward 2, 3, 4, or 5, your numbers are different now. And you can see on a map, if you want to zoom in on the city's zoomable map, which might make folks nauseous on the screen share. So I don't want to take you on a Zoom ride with me like that. But if you look in the state of Michigan's voter information center, you can look up your own registration status and you can look up your districts. So I entered my information earlier and this is what showed up. So yes, you're registered. It tells you if you're on the permanent absentee list, which I am. It tells you your polling location. It tells you your clerk and ballot drop-off areas. The other thing that it can tell you is if you click the button about voting districts, it will tell you what your new precinct number is within the city. So I used to be precinct 10, now I'm precinct 51. So that's a big difference. It tells your school district, and then importantly, it tells you your new state house, state senate, and Congress, congressional seat, because those have been changed. And I think some folks are still pretty confused about that. So that's a way that you can look up your own information, share this with others. The Michigan Voter Information Center is a place where they can look up their own registration status and make sure that they're in the voter registration rolls and see what their new districts are. The county commissioners also did reapportionment. There's very few changes. We maintained 9 districts just as we had before. The only major change was the district in the very center of the city moved slightly north. And so it's not too different. So I think those are the things that I wanted to make sure we covered for folks. There are maps for the new congressional, House, and Senate seats here in Michigan. I put that link in the chat. If you search online for the Michigan Citizens Redistricting Committee, you should be able to find the final maps, and those maps are zoomable. So if you want to click on the House map or the Senate map and zoom all the way into your street, that might be very helpful for you to know, for example, which side of Pauline you're on is a different district now in the State House. So I want to see what questions folks have about the nuts and bolts of redistricting before we get into our discussion about potential topics for the Ann Arbor Dems forums this summer. Any questions about redistricting or anything I missed? Susan, I know we talked about this a little bit as co-chair, so I don't know if I missed anything.
Sounded very thorough. Thank you, Carrie. And if anyone didn't notice, they did say that the City Hall will be sending out new voter ID cards with your new precinct numbers late spring, early summer. So watch out for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls wondering, like somebody in Ward 4 was wondering, wait, how am I in the 40s? So excellent. James McIntosh.
I have a question. I saw the list that the Ann Arbor Dems sent out on who is running in Ward 2, but then I got a something in the mail that suggests that there's more than one person running in Ward 2. So does somebody know the answer to that? Because I got a re-election thing from Kathy Griswold, which wasn't on your list of people that are running.
Mm.
So
she has dropped out of that race. She publicly announced that and I could find the news story in a few minutes. I saw your hand up, Elizabeth. And Joan, you came
Yeah,
up.
I was just going to say that Kathy had pulled petitions because no one else had. And when she saw that someone else had pulled petitions, she was eager to, I don't think she would mind me sharing that. She had family commitments that she had been talking to people about for months that she would have preferred not to be on council anymore. And she was relieved to see that someone else had filed. So the person who is on the ballot and continues to be on the ballot, Chris Watson, he filed quite late. And so the postcard that you received and the information that Kathy was sharing was true at the time, and then failed to be, like, she affirmatively pulled her name off of the ballot. She will not be on the ballot.
Thank you. So there's one Democrat on the ballot. I don't think there's a Republican who filed for Ward 2.
No, I mean, the deadline has not passed for independents yet. So there technically could be independent or write-in, but as far as we know, no. And I'll try to get Chris Watson to come to one of the meetings. He's a terrific young man. He's only 30 years old, which is great that we're getting some of the new young people to be interested in running for office. And he went to high school here. He went to Yale and came back because his mother was ill, and his mother was a doctor and unfortunately passed away about 5 years ago. And he's been here. His father is a psychologist, also lives here in the second ward. And I think he's just going to be a great asset for us. And especially, he still has a lot of friends who live here and grew up here, and it's really a good thing. And I appreciate that Kathy met with him and really likes him a lot. And I think she'll be working to help him acclimate as well.
Thank you. James McIntosh, did you have another question?
I do not.
All right. So the discussion just now about Chris being the only candidate in Ward 2, I want to let folks know that our executive board of the Ann Arbor Dems did talk about this as part of our candidate forums. Ward 3 also currently only has one Democrat, or will only have one Democrat on the ballot. So those forums are going to be slightly different than the ones where we have multiple Democrats on the ballot. But we do still want to hear from those candidates about the topics that we're about to discuss. So we do want to hear from folks here on this Zoom today about what we might want to be asking candidates at forums. And even if there's not competitive primaries, we still do want to have wards 2 and 3 have a candidate, a time for them to talk about the local issues. So even if you do have a specific topic that's really ward specific, please do bring it up. So that said, I'm going to share my screen and use an online tool called Jamboard, which maybe not everybody has used, but I've used it as an instructor at the University of Michigan, and it is a collaborative tool. And if you would like to join, you are welcome to. If it's too difficult because you're on your phone or you hate technology, which is totally fair, don't worry about it. You can also add verbal comments so that I can hear them and try to add them to the board as well. So it's a little bit like a dry erase board, except it's virtual. So you can see here, it's a clear white backdrop. We can add sticky notes where you can type in words and you can choose the color, and every single time will go up to the top left and you can move it to somewhere on the screen. So we can group these sticky notes in a way to have ideas on the screen. So I'm going to put this link inside the chat box so that anybody who is willing or wanting to join this can join with us and add information to the board. So what are some of the topics that folks want to be able to ask our candidates about, our city candidates for our city council forums, which are we're aiming to have happen in June? If there's any particular topics.
Carrie, are you asking folks to do their own sticky note, or you'll do the
You can
sticky
do your
note?
own if you would like. If you would not like, I'm happy to add them for you.
So I need a little coaching. How would I do my own sticky note?
Are you able to join the Jamboard?
I don't know. How do I do that?
If you go to the chat and click on the link that I just put in there, and it
Did
should
you just
take
give me instructions and I didn't really pay attention?
That's okay.
Okay.
Don't worry. I tried to set it to being general public.
Oh,
but
I
no.
see it. Okay, I
Thank you,
got it.
Dharma, for the settings that I might have messed up. Anyone with the link should be able to edit it. So anybody in there should be able to edit this.
Access, request
So I
access.
see one sticky note that was added. Topic that somebody wants to ask is about climate change. How should we best target our dollars towards sustainability? And remember, this is for city council candidates, so this would be city dollars.
All right.
I see a question in the chat to me about the city council's role in justice reform. So I'm going to add that one for that person.
All right. Well,
What other topics are folks interested in? I see climate change, justice reform. I personally live in Ward 5, and the Gelman plume is expanding in my ward. So I am going to add a sticky note about that. What is the city's role in addressing, if any, in addressing the Gelman plume?
will you add a sticky note for me because I can't figure out your technology?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I offered it, because some people do not want to deal with this. Don't worry. Yes.
I'll let you figure out your wording on this, but citizen engagement, we have to figure out how to include and people in our citizenship. I mean, not in citizenship, but we have to figure out how to engage people in government and outreach. The whole ARPA funding is a really good example. We had $24 million at our fingertips, and we had such poor. Why? That baffles the mind.
Thank you for adding that. I saw a question that was added about universal basic income. How will those families be selected? Somebody just added a topic of encouraging affordable housing. I saw a question in the chat, and I see some hands up. A question in the chat about increasing DEI efforts in the city. So I'll add that. And I'll make it into a question, like an open-ended, what can be done to increase DEI activities, diversity, equity.
Sure.
Yes.
I just, maybe we could modify this since this is going to be to candidates. What can the candidates do in terms of increasing the DEI efforts? Even identifying the DEI efforts would be helpful, I think. Oh, sorry, my camera's off.
Thank you. And I see some hands. I see, James, do you have a hand for a question?
I think he may have forgotten to take his hand down.
Okay.
Last question.
And I see you have your hand up.
I have three things that I think are relevant to the forum. One is, what is the candidate's role, or if elected, in the comprehensive land use plan update? That's going to
Are you asking the candidates what they think their role will be, or what they want
yes, or yeah, what we need to kind of like Ingrid was saying about more robust citywide engagement. And so as a council member, sorry, I'm not framing it, yeah, but what ways, how would they like to help with the comprehensive land use plan update?
Okay,
Because I think that'll be one of the biggest things on the horizon.
to do community engagement, to do the
Yes,
update
yeah,
with the comprehensive. Now you get to see all of my typing in real and with I'm sharing screen, you can see all my typos. Okay, with the comprehensive land use plan. That was one question. You had three. And yes,
yes.
Susan, if you want to add notes, please do.
What might the candidate do to increase mental health resources?
What might the candidate do? Okay. And
And
then
then,
Susan can take the next one.
Not sure how to do it if you're doing it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. What might the candidate
Yeah,
do
help.
to
Just don't know how
increase mental health resources? Thank you. And then Anne, your last one.
my last one was, what's their position on preserving mature trees and woodlands in our ecosystem?
Thank you. All right, so I see some questions coming into the chat. Does the candidate support CROWS? That is the Coalition Reimagining Our Safety.
Could someone expound on that, please?
Alicia, do you want to talk a little bit about that since you put it in there?
Yeah, I'm just curious on what their thoughts are about the Coalition for Re-envisioning Our Safety, and if this is something that they would be supportive of if elected.
I'm sorry, Alicia, could you give us more clarification? Because that seems pretty broad and some of us may not be familiar, because of course everyone wants safety.
Oh,
Are you talking
yeah,
about police oversight or?
Yeah, so CROWS, the Coalition for Re-envisioning Our Safety, it is the unarmed community response team that they're talking about implementing in Ann Arbor and following models nationally, with Cahoots in Oregon, some STAR in Colorado. There's areas that have for a long time and most recently started community unarmed response teams to really handle things that police don't necessarily want to or should be dealing with. And so I just think that I know it's a big, passionate topic for people in Ann Arbor. So if people support that or not, I think would be a good question.
And to be clear, is this organization part of the defunding the police efforts?
So they don't focus on that. I mean, their focus is on, so I look at it like they're two different things. You have police reform and you have the different positions on defunding abolition in the policing and carceral system realm. This is more so advocating for separate funding for a totally different service. It's a community responder team, sort of like your mental health responders and CMH crisis team. So I wouldn't,
Well,
I wouldn't, yeah, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. I'm sorry. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to clarify for folks because there could be potential candidates on and maybe friends of potential candidates. Just wanted to clarify that because again, the national buzz from some of our opposition out there get messages confused and convoluted, if you will. So just wanted to raise that question. Thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
There was a question in the chat about asking the candidate's stance on paying interns in the city. So I added that as well. And then I see there is a question about encouraging affordable housing. What other topics? It doesn't have to be the exact question. And I think our executive board will be workshopping these. So the questions might change slightly or be grouped or something. So these are really great ideas to help us.
I'm sorry, Carrie.
Please.
But just again, to help us, the audience can help us. for encouraging affordable housing does anyone have any specific questions about that? I mean, of course, well, I would say as Dems, we want to encourage affordable housing, but is there anything specific that the questioner would like to ask our candidates regarding affordable housing?
This might have been James McIntosh.
No, I think that was me. And I kind of want to leave it as a broad question because there are so many different ways to do it. You know, for instance, there's streamlining city processes, there's changing zoning, there's eliminating parking maximums or parking minimums. So I think, you know, I would want to know that this person had studied all the different possible techniques that cities around the country are using and see what their priorities are.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate that. And I would actually then add another question, Joan, in support of that. What does the candidate think affordable housing means? Because, you know, we have such, well, you know the details better than I, Joan. I'm sorry.
You know, I think to that, Susan, you're right that it's very confusing. So maybe different levels of affordable housing, because there are different solutions depending on if you're talking about very affordable, you know, for people just coming out of homelessness, for example, but then what we call workforce housing too. So that's a good point to maybe clarify that about different levels of affordable housing.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was
Thank
going
you
to
for-
ask about what you meant by affordable housing, or was it housing affordability? Because the federal definition, there like is a technical definition of affordable housing. So it sounds like what you're talking about, Joan, is like the spectrum of affordability. How do we increase options?
Right.
Thank you. Somebody added a sticky note about implementing the goals of A20. That's the city's action plan to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. So thank you for adding that. So I'm seeing some questions about the public safety, justice system, coalition for re-envisioning our safety, that kind of category. A little bit about, well, mental health is kind of in social service area, but it's, I don't know if there's other topics that kind of could clump with that. There's a lot of environmental and climate topics here. And then community engagement and like civic engagement. Safety for cycling and pedestrians is that this, I don't know if we'd clump that in with community safety or if that's kind of a different subset maybe.
I think that's a different subset.
Yeah.
Versus
I mean, we have a
the-
transportation commission, so.
Yeah.
And all right.
That one could also be part of A20, given that one of
Right.
the big goals of A20 is reducing single occupancy automobile trips.
Right. Okay. In the chat, I see a question. How will the candidate use conflict resolution to achieve support from other council members?
Good
I'm
one.
going to just copy and paste that and put that in here. Thank you for that question. And then there was a question about how would the candidate strengthen collaborative efforts with other key players like University of Michigan and Ann Arbor Public Schools? Another great question. Other questions, topics. These are not really organized at the moment. These are really just, I'm trying to make it so that the small letters are legible. Any other thoughts? Trying to think through, does the candidate feel there are factions on city council, and how would the candidate deal with We can add that to the list and thank you. So let's see, we've talked about climate, we've talked about comprehensive land use. I see 2 more questions in the chat. What are your top 3 priorities that you're campaigning to change or support? It's always a good question to ask the top 3. And then there is a question in the chat about supporting term limits. And I'm assuming, Susan, this question is about term limits on city council.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
I think it was only recently that the terms became 4 years. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I see your hand up. And is your hand up to ask another question? All right. Any other topics?
I just threw another one in there, Carrie, sorry. I wish I could be able to do sticky notes a minute ago. Now I can't.
That's okay. Are there opportunities to collaborate with the city of Ypsilanti regarding affordable housing or other efforts? That's a great question. Let me just get this up here. Thank you for adding that question. Trying to think, is there anything we want to talk about with like voter turnout, voter education? Is that similar to community engagement? I know that we've talked about that before in our programming about, actually getting really good turnout in Ann Arbor. That because we could possibly get better turnout. Does the candidate support efforts to engage U of M on affordable housing? That is great. I'm going to add that. I'll make that a separate one for now, but that there might be like a multi question about partnering for affordable housing. And how will candidates stay informed with their ward? That's a great question.
I love the newsletters, by the way, Elizabeth. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a couple newsletters. I actually taught a class this semester on policy practice with current events, and I used a couple of the newsletters as a
Yes.
local source information.
You
I
need
think-
to have you as a speaker, Carrie, on that. That would be very helpful.
With what?
I agree.
I think the voters should hear more about that, and as well as candidates or potential candidates. So we'll just note that for future programming with you.
About what?
Your class, when you mentioned that you taught the class on engagement or political.
Oh, yes, yes.
I think that's
I had
really
the
helpful.
students focus on policy items that were in front of the council in the fall or that were coming up in the beginning of this year, this calendar year. And they were trying to learn, the social work students were trying to learn how to analyze the context and figure out some sort of advocacy action in favor of what they want to see with the policy. And so I used, like, students gave feedback on how they thought the ARPA engagement process went, gave feedback on what they think the opioid settlement dollars should be used on, things like that. But the
So
class was
should-
only 5 or 6 weeks long, so we couldn't, use huge topics. We had to use something local.
But that kind of leads me to a question. How would the candidate as a city council person the thought process into new policies. You probably can word this better than I, but it would be helpful to know, I mean, because I have to say, and I love you city council people who are here, I really appreciate you taking the time, but some of your policies, you come out of nowhere with some of this stuff. I won't even talk about no mow May. Not that I don't love the bees, don't get me wrong, people, but if you're gonna still find me for high grass, then I need to start cutting in May. But I don't know where that came from, so sorry for babbling about that, but I'd like to know the thought processes.
I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that, but
Nope, they don't have to. Not here, that wouldn't be fair.
okay. Councilmember Nelson, were you gonna? I saw you.
Yeah, I do want to clarify for Susan's specific concern, because I think it's important if you're confused about that. You're only going to get ticketed for high grass if it interferes with sight lines, like at a sidewalk. And so if you have high grass that is, and I actually had to verify this for the benefit of a resident who was similarly concerned, like, you can't ticket me for something you're asking me to do. The standard is very high. It's 24 inches. Your grass would have to be 24 inches tall for you to be ticketed for
Elizabeth.
violation of the visibility.
Yeah, but I've already got 12 inches, seriously.
Okay. So,
Part of May. But I appreciate the clarification, and I think that would be helpful. Again, that's why I love about your newsletters, Elizabeth. You really, deal with the issues in the agenda. But I just saw one of my city council people out mowing today, and I stopped said council person and said, "What do you do it?" And said council person says, "Well," and I said, "I appreciate it. My grass is 12 inches already in some spots." But I appreciate, again, clarification on that. And I think more people would, as you mentioned, another city person ask.
All right. Well, our next guest is joining us at 11:30. So I don't know if we have time to talk through. I mean, if anybody has other things they want to add, I think this is really a great start.
So can I interrupt for just a minute?
Please.
I did add a question that I think you missed.
How would you approach agenda and priority setting? That one?
No.
Okay, please.
I asked a question about, hang on, I think that's, I'm not sure. I think this is Julie calling. Hang on.
Okay.
I just missed her. I just texted Julie to ask her if she could join us sooner.
Thank you.
From the ACLU. And then anyway, I've got a question there, and she just called and now I couldn't call her. So she's calling back. Hang on.
Okay, don't worry. The other thing, I did notice that there was a question added. How would you approach agenda and priority setting for city council? Is a question that was added to our jam board. So that was a good addition. Thank you to whoever added that. I'm trying to think, is there other, we've talked about DEI, climate, H20. We haven't asked anything about public power. I am a little curious about thoughts on public power.
When you mean public power, are you talking about utilities and that city municipal thingy?
There's a group pushing, it's called A2 Public Power. They're really pushing for municipalization of the infrastructure within the city limits so that the city would own the infrastructure of electricity distribution within our city. And this is, to give people a little bit more protection from inconsistencies with DTE, plus DTE sources their energy a lot more from dirty energy sources than some other competitors that they have. So there's some movement for public power. There's also the sustainable energy utility, which has a survey out right now. The city's working on developing this ability for locally generated electricity and having that be an alternative for folks in the city to be able to get their electricity from instead of, you know, a big corporation.
So will my bill go even higher?
That is a
Just
question for
kidding.
folks to figure out. I can't answer that.
My water bill, but I'm just kidding, or not kidding, sorry.
No, I can say that when I lived in Marshall, they had their own utilities.
How'd that work out for you?
You know, or at least they were going to get it. I don't know. But that is a city that you could study. You can see how things worked out there.
Great. Thank you. Cool. Well, I added something here about public power. Ingrid is, Julie will be joining us soon. That'll be great. Any other topics? I'm trying to think of anything else. Opioid, I know that there's the opioid settlement funding that the city signed on to. I don't know the process for if there's been a process developed, but that's something I'm curious about, and it might be something related to the mental health services too. So I'm going to put a question, you know, what do you think the process should be?
No, I saw
Or-
one municipality, it designated the money to go to Mentor for Youth or My Brother's Keeper, one of the two. Has the city of Ann Arbor made a designation so far?
I don't know that has happened. Elizabeth, you would know more.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, regarding the, Carrie just brought up the opioid revenues. And I was just wondering, I saw a nice little article where I think it was city or Pittsfield, forgive me, Pittsfield, I think, designated their money to go to Mentor to Youth or My Brother's Keeper. Has the city made any designation?
Are you sure it's opioid money or marijuana excise revenue? What are you?
I thought it was opioid, but I could be confused. I often am.
Let me quickly search my records because I have a lot of information I can easily search. Let me see if I can find it, and I might be able to put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I see a question from Mary Haltram, and then I'm going to close out the discussion on topics and questions for the candidate forum. So Mary, your question is, would you as a candidate support a guaranteed income for city residents? Thank you for adding that. Questions?
Is that part of the UBI? That's the Universal Basic Income, Mary? Or are you thinking something else?
This is a proposal that I heard from Councilperson Lynn Song. And so she would have to give you the particulars of it, but it was in reference to guaranteed income.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I've been following this too. She sponsored what they call the Universal Basic Income. And as I understand it, Elizabeth, and correct me, it's 100 families will be selected to receive this $500 a month for 2 years. So Mary, are you thinking something
That would be
expanding?
that would be the proposal, but I would
Okay.
I guess expand that.
Mm-hmm.
So to ask if there would be support for that for the candidates.
Okay. Well, I
Mhm.
wrote it down on the brainstorm, and we
Okay, thank you.
will take that into account when we, as an executive board, get together and workshop these questions for the
Thank you.
candidates. Okay, well, thank you everybody so much. These were great questions, great topics. And if you think of anything else, please let us know. We will be working on our questions for the candidates over the next few weeks, and we're hoping to have these forums in June. So we have plenty of time to have the forum itself and then upload the videos so that voters can watch the videos before the primaries. So thank you. So I am going to now transition us. Thank you, Julie, for joining. I just met you actually not too long ago. We live right down the street from each other when I was picking up petitions. So thank you for joining us. Do you need to share your screen, or anything? Okay. So I will just hand it over to you, and we have until noon, but we don't have to go that long if we don't need to.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for having me. I know it's so funny, like I've seen you 3 times in the last week. So thanks again for doing this and for having me. I don't think we'll need till noon. But let me jump in then. Again, thanks for having me come to speak with you all. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Julie Fehlbaum, and I am the team lead for Washtenaw County for the ACLU for the Reproductive Freedom for All initiative. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold and I ran in here and I forgot to grab my water. So let me know if my voice gets too harsh and hard to hear. So I'm pretty aware that probably most of you are really familiar with this initiative, but I am just going to take a few minutes and clarify exactly what this is, because I'm finding there's a lot of misinformation and a lot more misinformation since the Supreme Court leak a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to try not go off on the awful experience of misinformation I had last night at a get together I was at. So as many of you know, bear with me, I'll make this quick. As many of you know, the Reproductive Freedom for All initiative is a collaborative effort between the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and Michigan Voices. The initiative has 2 parts. The first part that I'm going to talk about today is signature collection. We're engaged in an extensive signature collection campaign. The second part, which will happen closer to the election, is educating voters on voting in this piece of legislation that we're working on the signature collection part of now. I got to slow down. Ingrid called me and I ran up the stairs and up my driveway, and I think I'm still racing here. So, as most of you know, right now we are engaged in a signature collection initiative in order to get an amendment to the Constitution on the ballot for the November election. The amendment ensures reproductive freedom for all Michiganders, for the entire gamut of reproductive health. We need 425,059 valid signatures by the beginning of July. The amendment protects, and this is the piece, and you probably all know this, so forgive me if this is repetitive for you. It protects the entire continuum of reproductive health. So that means birth control, access to sterilization, prenatal care, pregnancy care, postnatal care, etc. And obviously we are doing this because we believe medical decisions like this should be made between the doctor and the patient and not legislated by government. We are doing this now. Nobody knew this before 2 weeks ago, but of course, you probably all know about the Supreme Court leak that happened a couple of weeks ago. This was not unexpected. We knew this was coming. That's why we started working on this campaign back in March. When the Supreme Court rolls back Roe v. Wade, and as you probably all know, returns issues of reproductive health to individual states, the abortion piece of reproductive freedom will be criminalized in this state. And as most of you know, and this is because there's an old law on the books from 1931 that criminalizes abortion and states that any person who provides an abortion can face prison time for up to 15 years. And again, abortion is one piece of the entire Reproductive Freedom for All initiative. So that's kind of a quick and dirty on the actual amendment that we're hoping to get passed in November. Before I talk about how to get engaged in this work, sorry for my voice. Let me ask you if you have any questions, because you can't believe some of the bizarre questions I'm getting right now. So let me open up for questions. I think they're doing construction outside. I don't know if that noise is getting in the way. I'm closing my window. Go ahead.
We cannot hear that noise.
Yeah, I'm fine with writing that. I do think we do have a question from the audience though. Anne, do you have a new question or is this from a previous conversation? Anne? Okay, well, um, maybe Anne will come back. Julie, you may be covering this later, so forgive me, but I have a lot of friends who want to help in terms of petitions. Can they be petition gatherers, or, can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's the second part of what I'm going to talk about right now. So thank you. If there's no questions, I'll pivot to that.
It looks like we do have a question from James McIntosh.
Yes, James.
Yeah, I have a question. So someone earlier read this language, I think it was Debbie Dingle, on what right to life is up to. And it made me wonder, so if they actually try and sabotage petition drives by having people sign up, falsely, so things get thrown out, is that illegal in Michigan?
Is collecting false signatures illegal? Is that?
No. If I go to a petition and I purposely say, my name is James McIntosh, I live in Brighton, Michigan. No, I don't. So if there is intent to essentially put an invalid signature to try and invalidate a petition drive, because that's what I'm wondering with these guys.
Right.
Are they really trying to not just ask God to intervene for them, but are they actually trying to get people to do nefarious things? And if so, is it illegal, and is there a way to catch it on our part?
That's a really good question. So thanks for asking it. Let me give you sort of a long-winded answer to that question. And if I don't address it specifically, come back at me. So as I said, what's required to qualify for the ballot is 425,059 valid signatures. We expect lots of invalid signatures. So what happens is when those get turned in, so we're actually shooting and expect to collect way more, probably almost double that amount. We expect, and since the leak, I don't think we're gonna have any problem getting those signatures. So we expect to collect way more than the needed 425,000. Many of those signatures will be invalid either purposefully, like you said, or people just make mistakes in signature collection. They put signatures from two different counties on the same page. Maybe it's an innocent mistake, but nevertheless, the signature is invalidated. The other side, the right to, the anti-choice people are going to go through every single signature, same thing we did for their piece of legislation a few years ago, and try and invalidate, as many validly invalid signatures they can, and they'll probably try and throw out a bunch of valid signatures as well. We're planning for that. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So if they do it, they do it. We do signature collection training. So in answer to the woman who asked me, how do you get involved? The first step is we're teaching circulators how to collect signatures so that we kind of avoid some of that. But in the event it happens, I'm not worrying about it because we're overshooting our goal and we'll get the signatures anyways. Whether or not it's illegal, that I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I can certainly get that answer for you if you like, but it doesn't matter because we're going to have way more signatures than we need. So hopefully that answers your question. Did I, or did I just talk for a long time and put everybody to sleep?
No, it does.
Okay.
The only reason I asked it was because it appears that in the case of running for governor, that there's a minimum number of signatures that you have, but there's a maximum number that you can turn in.
Yeah, well,
And
so
in that case, and the numbers are pretty, the band isn't that wide.
Correct.
So anyway, you're right. If we can turn in an extra 100 or 200,000 signatures, end of story. Thank you.
Well, and the other piece that maybe is important to know is the process. So there's a bunch of people like me across the state collecting petitions on the ground. I send them to the ACLU. The ACLU is going to do due diligence on them first, and Planned Parenthood and Michigan Voices. They're going to get rid of the ones they know are invalid right away, so that what we're turning in is hopefully valid. So that's another level of checks that might help. So, okay, I can't see the chat actually on my screen, so I don't know if there's other questions.
There's none at the moment. I'll help you out there, Julie, if we get some in there.
I
Okay,
do have a question, Julia. Are you paying for signatures? Are these paid petitioners?
we are the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and Michigan Voices. We are all volunteers. I have heard that there are paid petitioners. I have no, there are invalid or, ones you don't want to sign, paid petitioners. And I think there are some paid petitioners, but I don't have any real information on what that looks like.
Thank you.
Anything else any other questions before I pivot to how you can get involved? Okay. All right, so I will move on. Great question, and obviously the primary reason in here. How can you get involved if you want to support this work? Obviously, I'm going to start with the easiest thing to do to the most involved and most labor and time intensive. The easiest thing you can do is sign a petition. They are all over. Many of you may know there's a rally at the Diag in which I'm going to sign off and go there. As soon as we're finished today, there'll be petitioners all over there. You can sign a petition. You can I can drop a link in the chat. You can have a petition mailed to you, sign it and mail it back. It's not hard to sign a petition. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing that you can do is a signature collection training, which again, I will drop the link for the training in the chat when I'm done talking, because the older I get, the less I can do two things at one time. So I will drop the link and the password for how to collect signatures. It's like 15 minutes to look at, not involved at all. I cannot express, and I think what James just raised is a perfect example of why you need to do this. Please do the signature training. It's the honor system because frankly, we can't keep up with checking whether or not people have actually done it. But as you all know, this is an extremely controversial initiative, and the goal is to throw out signatures. So even if you have done signature collection in the past, we're really asking you to look at these because they're trying to throw out signatures. So we really want you to do the signature collection training before you go out. After you do the training, you can get petitions. If you're local in Ann Arbor, it's probably easiest to get it from myself, or I have two other folks doing petition distribution for me with me. We can get petitions to you. You can also usually pick them up from a local site at least once a week. Last week, I was at the farmer's market. This week, we'll have petitions in the Diag in a couple of hours. And you can pick them up with petitions and bumper stickers and all that kind of stuff. And then you can start doing signature collection training. The easiest place to get signatures, and the place we also need it the most, is your family, your friends, your book clubs, your yoga groups, the people that you know and have relationships with. These are probably the easiest people to get to for all of us. And also they're not the people we're reaching when we're at farmers markets and rallies and such. So you can pick up the petitions and then distribute to the people that you know. The next thing you can do is join the Washtenaw County Reproductive Freedom for All group. I'll also put that link in the chat as soon as I'm done talking. And when you join that link, you'll see all the places that we are, and you can join to circulate at an event. So by way of example, this week we have 3 or 4 petition signing events in neighborhoods. I have people at the farmers market right now, the artisans market tomorrow, Ipsy market, the Diag. So if you wanted to join a group like that, you can see what's going on and just join. Sometimes petitions are there already. If it's a big event, sometimes you have to pick them up ahead of time. I'm also going to drop my email in the chat, so you have a direct link if you get confused or have difficulty with any access. The one caveat with email is I try and get to them within a few days, but I'm the lead volunteer for this and I have another job. So sometimes, like a job, so sometimes it takes me a few days to get to email, and I just ask for your patience if that comes up. So that's how you can get involved. Questions about that? Thoughts about that?
Julie, I want to add, I did do the training to circulate petitions, and I want to let folks know it is a series of online web pages, but it's not video based. It's not like it's not loud. It's not difficult to do. So I was pleasantly surprised by how simple it was.
It is simple, and the other feedback that I'm getting, it definitely walks you through the specifics of like black or blue ink only and all the specifics you need to know. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually done that. I haven't seen that training myself. As I understand it, there's talking points, this
There
is,
is.
yeah.
And
which is-
FAQ, like frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
So what happens if somebody says, oh, darn it, I misspelled my street name? It tells you how to correct it.
Yeah, and how to approach people, like,
Mhm.
what do you want? What's an easy way? I mean, the easiest thing, I'll just tell you right now, what I found when I'm out, not with friends, but circulating the public, I just say, hey, would you like to protect reproductive freedom in Michigan? Or would you like to help support reproductive freedom in Michigan? And then people usually pivot and say, yes, especially since the leak this couple of weeks ago. So yeah, thank you for adding that. It is that I'm getting great feedback about it and people are appreciative. It makes them feel more comfortable going out and doing this work.
Mhm. Go ahead, Susan.
Julie, first of all, thank you for doing this. You mentioned you've got a paid job too. This is so important. Question regarding getting the petitions back to you.
Yes.
Is there a deadline, and is there a better way to do it?
Thank you so much for the question. So in terms of deadline, there's 2 answers. The hard and fast date, it's July 9th or July 11th, or I can't remember the exact date that all petitions have to be turned in. But really, they need to be turned in by the end of June. I'm telling everybody June 30th, because remember, they're coming to me. I do due diligence. I send them, as I just said to James, to the ACLU or Planned Parenthood or whoever's, and then they have to go through and validate each signature before they turn them into the state. So like, it's a really hard and fast, no kidding, end of June. If you're done earlier, get them to me earlier. We need the time. The second answer to that question is we're trying to gauge how many signatures we have right now. So if you're holding on to signatures, turn them in so we can start to get it. We have way more circulating. Like from my house in the last 5 days, I'm out. I have 5 petitions left. I had 600 delivered on Monday. So that's 5,000 signatures, right? So they're all out there. We don't know how many we're collecting. So if you have them, we're asking you to please drop them off. If you live downtown Ann Arbor, you can drop them off at my house, or I'm literally a mile from downtown. I have another petition distribution person about 2 miles, both of us on the west side. We also have a drop-off site in Ipsy. And we're working on a public drop-off site because frankly, it's just getting too big, which I'll be able to let you know as it'll be a restaurant or something like that in downtown Ann Arbor, but I don't have a specific place yet. But you can just leave them in my door. If you don't need to pick up petitions, just leave them in the door, or we're all 4 of us. I have 2 adult children that are home for a month. Somebody can pick them, somebody's here almost all the time.
Ingrid.
Yeah.
Oh, Ingrid, you don't have a question?
No, I do. I just lowered my hand because I'm going to ask it now.
Perfect.
So thank you so much for all of your hard work on this. The information that you're sharing with us, would it be okay if we put it up on our website in case anybody else wanted to access petition?
That would be awesome. And actually, I'm wondering if rather than putting it in the chat, I should send it to somebody's email. And then you can, it's probably easier to forward that way. Is that probably a better way? It would be great. That's the whole point. Like, get it out to your people. If you guys have friends and family who want to do
Yeah.
this, like, rather than put it in the chat, tell you what, I'll put all of the information. Who should I send it to? Jessica or?
Julie, I just put an email address for me in the chat. I can also text it to you. And we'll get it up on the website. Jessica has poor internet access right now, so she might
Okay.
not be able to get it.
So you put it in the chat. So let me make sure. I'm having such a hard time.
I can text you too.
Can't see the chat. Yeah. I don't
Don't
know.
worry.
I had this problem with my last Zoom. I'm going to have to figure it out. If you text me your
Mhm.
email address, I will give you all the links for all of the information. But also, as I said, you probably know there's a big rally in the Diag today. So I'm headed right from this to that. So I'll send it to you later today or tomorrow, if that's okay.
Yes, that's okay. We're not going to update our website probably by the end of the day. So
But I
it'll
just
take us a couple days too.
I just texted her, where is she? But I need to get over there, so I'll do it later today or tomorrow.
Don't worry. Michael, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, James McIntosh asked a question a moment ago about would it invalid a petition if a signer signs not her or his name or another address or something. It does not invalidate the petition.
Correct.
But it is illegal to do that, and that signer could be penalized a felony of up to $500 and 93 days in jail.
I did not know that. Okay.
So it does not invalidate the petition drive or that petition. It's for the signer.
Got it. Well, so what will be invalidated, of course, is that signature, not the whole petition, which has 10 signatures, which maybe
Right.
I should have been clearer about. That's right. It will invalidate just the signature, not the entire petition, which has 10 signatures in total on it. I did
Right.
not know that, though. That's good information to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Well, okay, if there's no other questions, I guess I just really want to thank you. Please reach out, and if you have other events or other places that we can be, let me know. And we've got a ton of volunteers that can go out and distribute petitions, and I just really appreciate you guys and the opportunity to do this.
Thank you. I just texted you. Thank you very much for coming to our meeting and sharing this information with us. When Congresswoman Dingell was on the call earlier, she was talking about how there's a concerted effort and maybe coordinated effort to try to undermine this ballot initiative. So thank you for persevering and staying with it.
Thank you. And come on over in the thunderstorms to the Diag 2 to 4 today. There's a boatload of speakers and you can get rained on. So
It might not rain.
yeah, it might not rain. If you're there, stop by the ACLU table and say hi. I'll be there.
Thank you. Bye, Julie.
Thank you. I'm going to head off then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And for the rest of us, for the remainder of our meeting, we don't have any other topics on our agenda. Is there any other comments or questions that anybody wants to add before we adjourn our meeting? All right,
Oops.
please, James.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sort of hitting the wrong things at the wrong time. Anyway, are we going to start meeting in person at some point? I mean, this would have been a great day to, meet in the park. And I realize it's harder, when it's easier sometimes for people just to zoom in for a few minutes and disappear. But, so much of what politics is face-to-face talking to people.
Mhm.
And we need to get back into that business in the Ann Arbor Dems.
Thank you for sharing that. We will talk about this again at our executive board meeting and see what we feel comfortable with. As was noted earlier, our county did just move into the high category of COVID transmission. We also historically haven't met in the months of July and August because of summer vacations and things, and instead focused on candidate forums. So we'll be sharing a little bit more about our summer schedule. And this year is a midterm election year, so there'll be a lot going on in person over the summer as well. And we do still intend to have our Labor Day picnic on Labor Day like we do every year. So remember to put that on your calendar in the afternoon of Labor Day, and stay tuned for us to make the details more public for folks to be able to buy tickets and sponsorships. And
So just as an, oh, by the way, I have at least fall into 5 risk groups for COVID. And in both 2020 and 2021, I spent innumerable hours in the city of Detroit at polling stations. During early voting, I covered about a third of the early voting stations in the city of Detroit for the MDP. And if I can do that, wearing a mask and do this and do that, somehow we got to get beyond the point of, oh my God, we got to get, I don't think I'd ever thought I would say this, but we got to get back to life. And we got to get back to politics, because let's go back to what Debbie Dingle told us, which is, and the last time she was really afraid was 2016. And we all know what happened in Michigan in 2016. So we can't not meet, we can't not do something for the 4th of July parade if there is one. We got to get out there and we got to be visible. Thank you, and I will shut up now.
thank you for bringing that up. And there is a 4th of July parade. The JCs have announced that there will be a parade this year. Any other, I think we're good to adjourn unless there's any other final comments for folks.
Thank you,
Move that we
everyone.
adjourn and get out there and start getting those petitions signed.
Yes, have a good day, everybody. Enjoy the sunshine.
Stay safe.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for a great meeting.
Yeah, thanks for participating.
Thank you.
Good to
Yeah.
see everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Mary.
Yes, ma'am.
So how do I stop this recording?
I think you said leave. Do leave. Leave meeting. And that cuts it off. Got it?
Leave meeting. There we go.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. Take
Well-
care. See you
Well,
later.
actually,
Bye.
I wanted to talk to you real quick about next
Okay.
Saturday.
Uh-huh.
So where are your thoughts on this? I really want to go, but dang.
Let's see what comes out from MDP, because they may cancel based on what we've been hearing, because our numbers are extremely high. So it's like on a as we go basis. So I'm not making any firm promises one way or the other at this time, but just stay connected, because I'm sure that Lavora and her team will let us know what the official policy will be.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
Mary. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Guess I'm still recording.
So, Ingrid, there's not
Yeah.
going to be a 20